Hello everybody, this is Jack Dennis and welcome to our fly fishing and tying channel. I hope you're all having a good start to the new year and out tying a lot of flies. We started a couple of weeks ago with our Jack Dennis and Friends fly tying session. Our first one was with Dave Allison, and I'm going to be showing you some from the past. One of the things I've been involved with my fly tying career is setting up fly tying theaters and been involved with the many conclaves that fly fishing groups and clubs have over the country. And they really highlight tyers that you may not have ever met. And one of the best ones is one in Idaho, both the Western Idaho Expo and the Eastern Idaho Expo, which is in Idaho Falls. They've been doing these fly tying get-togethers for a long time. We're talking over 30 years. So I want to do some highlights from some that I filmed in 2009 and 2010. And you'll get a chance to meet some names you know, and maybe some names you didn't know. And one of the nice things about tying at these expos is all the excitement and sounds of people going around telling lots and lots of fly fishing stories. Most of them may be exaggerated. But one of the nice things about the theater is you get a chance to listen to the tyers talk about their experiences and answer questions. I think you're going to enjoy them. We're going to start this week with several. We'll try to give you the most information. And I know some of you are going to say, wow, you know, I don't know about the materials. Well, these are really uncut. So, you know, you do your best on figuring it out. But I think you're going to enjoy the interaction with the crowd and with the tyers. And really uncut and I think extremely fun. Let's get going. Our first tyer from the Eastern Idaho Fly Tying Expo is Todd Lanning, and you're going to enjoy Todd. This was done a number of years ago when he was at the South Fork Lodge working with Mike Lawson, and eventually ended up at Henry's Fork Anglers, again working with Mike Lawson, a very talented tyer and guide, and kind of the one of the authorities that you can find around the Henry's Fork Lodge. As Mike has gone into retirement this year, you will see, of course, Todd there, and he is a very accomplished fisherman and authority. So we're going to take it away a number of years. This is from 2009, and of course it's 2023 here. And we'll move up and hopefully we'll hear a lot more from Todd. You might find a lot of his work if you go to the Henry's Fork Anglers website, and they have a whole bunch of videos on their area and a lot of Todd talking about the Henry's Fork fishing. So enjoy Todd Lanning.
Primarily patterns that are going to work in a riffle, not necessarily throwing flies on the bank all day. Okay, now we're going to tie up a real simple pattern. There's a lot of different caddis in the South Fork. There's 3 or 4 different species I can think of just off the top of my head. The one that I always look forward to is the Mother's Day caddis. I don't imagine we're going to have that this year, though, because I've got the river ramped up to 14,000 CFS. So probably the Mother's Day caddis, if they keep the river where it's at this level, we're probably not going to see that. We're going to miss Mother's Day caddis if the river continues at the same rate it's at, and we're going to miss the squalla hatch too. The Mother's Day caddis is a grammon, and then, you know, that hatch though that nobody takes advantage of, or very few people take advantage of, is the speckled sedge that we have. It's an evening bug. You're not going to see it till until about right around dusk, and it's a bug though that you can fish consistently all the way into the dark until you can't see her fly no more. And once again, late evening thing. So if you're pressed for time, say, and you're looking to have some good fishing, go to it. Just do a short float, like from the bridge down to the fly shop, or if you're down here, maybe Wolf down to Byington. Any of those real short floats where you can get out and fish a little bit. Take advantage of this speckled sedge, and there's a lot of different patterns out there. I think one of the most successful patterns that's out there and is real easy to see is Lawson's Easy Caddis. It has got that post on it. You can really see it well because you're going to be fishing this pattern into some real low light conditions. And that hatch, you'll start seeing that generally second week of July, and you'll see those bugs every night at about 6 o'clock until dark, until it freezes really. You'll see those bugs into September. We're going to use a 200R again for this pattern. 3X long. We're going to use a number 20, and then I'm just going to use a little bead here, a little tungsten bead. We're going to try to fish this thing in a few different ways. You know, this is a case caddis that we're fishing, that speckled sedge is, and it's good to have 3 or 4 of these caddis pupa in your arsenal, because I've seen days before and I don't know why. I don't think anybody knows why, but every now and again these things, you know, they're crawling, they're clingers, and so they're crawling along rocks, but every now and again, if everything comes together for you, for some reason these things in big numbers will all let go of the rocks and they'll float down the river for half a mile or so. I don't know why, but when you see it happen, you'll see them by the hundreds coming down, and the fish see that and they key on that. I don't care what else is hatching. If all these case caddises have let themselves go and they're floating down the river, you're going to have a banger day. And it's not something you can count on. It's not something you're going to see very often, but if you do, and you're going to be real confused and frustrated because you're going to throw everything under the sun at these fish and they're not going to eat it. That's where in my stuff that I carry in my boat or in my vest, I have one of those insect, little seine that you can dip in the water and see. And honestly, I came upon this totally accidental because I was having one of those days where I could see dorsal fins coming up, I could see a lot of different things going on, but there wasn't a fish eating what I had, and I went through the arsenal at them, and I've got a lot of flies, trust me, and they weren't touching a thing. But so I happened to walk over to a pretty shallow riffle and drop put my seine in there, and that's what I came up with. The thing must have had 30 or 40 of these case caddises that were, for whatever reason, they'd release themselves off the rocks and they were just floating down the river. It's kind of an odd phenomenon. I don't know if anybody can explain it. The only thing I can think of is this: if maybe they feed on a specific plant or an organism or something, and maybe they deplete it out of an area, so then maybe they move down. That's about the only thing I can come up with. Now, with the caddis are really good swimmers too. That they shoot up through the water column pretty quick, and the place where they get hung up at, though, is always at the surface. That surface tension, bugs always struggle to get out of that. And they do the same thing. They fill their bodies up with gas, and that's how they get up to the surface so quick. So once again, making your bugs have that shine to them, I think, is a great idea. Now we've changed thread colors here. We're still using We're still using 6/0, but we're going to go with a darker colored thread. Now fish, when it comes to a caddis, any kind of a cased caddis, there's a free-roaming caddis and there's case caddis. And fish are going to go down, they're going to root around in rocks. They're going to root caddis out of their little spots. They're going to knock, I've seen them down rooting around, especially whitefish. If you've ever been in a spot where you can look down and watch a whitey, those things are always rooting around and digging around. And the same holds true with a trout. And the one thing that gives the cased caddis away is those bodies are always, on the South Fork anyway, their bodies, they've got a little black head, but once they extend out of that case a little bit, those bodies are really bright chartreuse green. It's an obnoxious green, and those fish see that color. I'm almost positive that they do. And if you want to argue with me, wait till we're done. And what we'll do for the case itself, you can use probably. I generally just use a black color for the case itself. If you want to change that colors, you can experiment around with all those colors as much as you want to. And I think, you know, most of especially the Mother's Day caddis that you see on the South Fork, those nymphs, those little shucks they make are square. I don't think that matters if your shuck isn't square that we're trying to imitate here. Once again, if fish are starting to identify shapes, then we're in trouble. Now you can bulk this one up a little bit. You don't have to go real sparse with it. And make it look buggy too. Don't when you put your dub on, when you're dubbing this thing on, don't twist it real tight. We want this thing to be a little bit buggy looking. And by buggy looking, I mean having some of your materials flaring out, as you'll see here as I'm tying this. Whoops. And you can, with this material too, you can run a dubbing brush through it, and as long as you've got it tied on there fairly tight, you're going to be okay. But if you look too at caddis that you see on the river, all these cases aren't all the exact same. So if you don't think that your shape looks right, don't let that bother you. It doesn't have to be exactly symmetrical and doesn't have to look perfect, in other words. Caddis are for whatever reason, are always overlooked as a food source for trout. But I tell you what, having a good bunch of different kinds of caddis and in different life stages, life cycles in your box is a good idea. Because man, if they're on them or if they're being picky, it seems to me that they're almost always going to eat a caddis fly. So you can see that's pretty dark body right there. Now that's why I like black, because we're going to contrast this with obnoxious green. I don't know if they have a color called obnoxious green, but somebody needs to come up with it. Because once those little heads poke out of there, you can't believe how they. The best way to see this is, of course, is if you can have a bug tank in your house. But you got to be careful too that some of these caddis are pretty. They're meat eaters. Like the big free roamer caddis that you'll see right now, they'll eat everything in your tank. And then if you want to not get yourself in a whole lot of trouble, make sure that you put a screen on it, because your wife won't appreciate salmon flies flying around in the house. Trust me. So that's it. It's a real down, dirty, real simple pattern right there. The key is with this pattern knows how you fish it. You come in here and trim a little bit of this stuff off. But what I like to do is I like to get this thing down. If I need to, I'll tie on a little bit of split shot. I like to fish it by itself. And then I'll throw it upriver, and you can probably get away with it with an bobber, an indicator. But throw it upriver, let it come down, and then as that thing starts to come down past you, lift your rod tip. You want this thing to come up into the water column, especially if you're having a lot of trout that are refusing adult patterns, and you will with the speckled sedge. They don't eat the adults as well as they do the emergers. So swinging this fly up through the water column is going to be the key for you to be successful. And I'm telling you right now, I have about a dozen of these in my box, and I have two different sizes. I have them in 16s and I have them in 18s. It's a must-have. If I had to pick one pattern for the South Fork that I could consistently catch fish year-round, it would be this little caddis pattern here. I am, yep. If you wanted to do, I think it would work too for the Mother's Day caddis hatch, but for that Graham caddis, I'd keep everything the same. I'd probably just fish it in a 14, just go up in size a little bit. And it'll work equally as well for you on the Henry's fork. All right, there it is. Nothing to it.